para las montañas porque mi amor aquí no me quiere. Como guajira que soy, voy a internarme entre las montañas. Como guajira que soy, voy a internarme entre las montañas. Oh, que por la guardarra llevo a ir. Acérquese, compay, que ya empezó el guateque. Vamos a pasear por los campos lindos, muchachos.
¡Santa palabra, Celina!
Así mismo, Tito. Madre mía, con verdadera alegría, hoy quiere mi lira pobre cantarte virgen del cobre, alma de la tierra mía. Madre buena, la santa fe que me guía a darte un verso bonito. Mira, madre, llega hasta tu altar bendita, al par que mi lira suba, y en el nombre de mi Cuba, Ochun, yo te felicito. Ay, me voy para las montañas porque mi amor aquí no me quiere. Como guajira que soy, voy a internarme entre las montañas. Como guajira que soy, voy a internarme entre las montañas. Ay, como guajira que soy, voy a internarme entre las montañas.
And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And thank you for joining us for another edition of the Divination Table. I am your host, Michael Lennon. Tonight's guest is an award-winning psychic reading teacher who currently resides in Scotland. Through her website, divination and fortunetelling.com, she teaches both experienced and would-be diviners how they can predict the future. Born into a Romany Gypsy family of fortune tellers, Lisa has had an active interest in the occult from a very young age. She specializes in teaching predictive divination, easy mediumship, and fortune telling. Let's bring on our guest, Lisa Boswell. Good morning, good evening. What time is it there?
It's 12 o'clock at night.
It is 12 o'clock at night, and I'm so happy to have you here.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy
So-
that it works. All the tech has worked. I'm absolutely shitting myself all day, panicking over if it worked or not.
I go through the shouting myself every time before a show, and I'm always looking up on my contacts. Do I have everything? Do I have them on Skype? Do I have the right name? I go through every single show.
Imagine if you'd done it and you got the wrong name of the person, that would be just terrible.
I would turn that into a show. So, you have a very interesting upbringing. You were born into a Romany Gypsy family, and, there were a lot of fortune tellers. So you had the privilege of growing up around divination pretty much your entire life.
Yeah, and I think as well with like gypsies and travellers and stuff, is that like our spiritual beliefs are very much like a part of our lives. So much so that even when like if you were to say to a gypsy person, "Oh, you're spiritual," they would say, "Oh no, I'm not," because like they even like do things they don't even realise it comes from like that like spiritual like superstitious place and stuff. So it was quite interesting when I was growing up, like going to school and realising that other people didn't do like the same sort of stuff that we did or believe in the same sort of stuff that we did. And even now, like as an adult, I'm still sort of like finding stuff out, do you know what I mean? And I'm like, wow, these are like the world's just so different, like the outside world is just so different, it's just absolutely crazy.
Wow. And growing up, in a Romany Gypsy family, I know that there are some predispositions regarding the word gypsy. So can you explain to us, what a gypsy really is?
Well, when people talk about gypsies, usually they talk about, they mean like a Romany person. And a lot of people don't know this, but Romany people are actually like an ethnic people. Originally they came from India like 1,000 years ago, we have our own language, our own beliefs, our own customs, and basically they're the same no matter like where we are in the world. So say like my language, my culture, my beliefs would be the same as like a gypsy person living in Brazil or whatever. And we tend to prefer to use the term like Romany, but I found that if I call myself a Romany person, people tend not to know what I'm talking about. Do you know what I mean? They tend to be like, well, what does that mean, kind of thing. So I do tend to use the term like gypsy, but you tend to find that like especially older gypsies don't like that term. Like my granny, she just goes absolutely crazy if she hears that term. She hates it. Even like when it's like even referring to like clothing or style or something like that, she just absolutely hates that word. My mum and that tend not to bother. Younger gypsies tend not to bother as much as like older gypsies, but there is like more of a movement now to sort of get rid of like that word kind of thing. But in general, now I'm sort of alright like using the word, because obviously I know that people tend not to know what I'm talking about. They assume that I'm from like Romania or like Roman Catholic or something if I say I'm Romany, so I tend to stick to just using the word gypsy.
So you're an award-winning teacher of divination, spirituality. You teach predictive divination. And can you explain for our listeners what predictive reading is for those that don't understand or don't realize there's an actual difference?
Well, I find that most readers tend to focus more so on like the self-help and like making the client like feel better and stuff like that. Whereas I always tend to focus on like the future. That there's a lot to like predictive reading that a lot of people don't realise. They think it's just like, oh, you go out and predict like the future or whatever. But when you make predictions, you're reading on someone's like destiny. You're reading on are they doing what it is that they're destined to do? You know, like are they destined to be a reader? Are they destined to be a singer or something like that? And you're reading on does their like current path sort of fit with what they're trying to achieve, kind of thing. And you'll tend to find that people tend to like run from things that they're destined from. Say like if they're destined to be readers or whatever, they tend to like resist it for a while and like run against it. And then you'll tend to find that like a lot of parts of their lives go wrong. Do you know what I mean? Like they'll keep applying for jobs, they can't get jobs. They'll be in these like really shitty relationships, and all these horrible things keep going wrong. And then it's the predictive reader's job to say, well, it's because you're fighting against like this greater good that you have, or fighting against like your destiny, kind of thing. So
right.
That's really what predictive reading is that you're reading on as their like path aligned with what the universe like wants them to be aligned with, if you know what I mean.
Right. I spent a good number of years running from different spiritual things, and I realized that you can only run for so long.
Yeah.
And eventually you have to face those fears, face that, challenge that spirit has put in your path, so that you can overcome and so that you can gain a better perspective and become a better person spiritually.
You see that was like me. I had my daughter when I was only 15. And it really, I felt in a way like that I'd really disappointed my family and stuff like that. So I went back to went back to school. I was still in high school. I went back to school. I went to college and things. I tried to do the whole normal life, and I was going to go and get like a normal job and be like one of the first members of my family to like go to university and stuff. That was like my grand plan, but it didn't really work out that way. And then after I left college, I ended up spending like 4 years in unemployment. Do you know what I mean? I had like good qualifications and stuff. I'd achieved like these achievement things for my attendance was great, all the rest of it. But I would apply for like literally hundreds of jobs a day. I couldn't get them. Something was always going wrong. I would like walk down to the job centre and like my library card, which I needed to apply for jobs with because I needed the computer, would like disappear out of my pocket. Like I would try to print off job applications and they wouldn't print off, and there was just constantly seemed to be something that was like in my way. And I used to cry about it to like my mum and my granny. And they used to say things to me like, oh, there must be something else for you out there, like you've got this destiny and stuff, like blah blah blah. And I used to be like, yeah, right then, like, 'cause I feel a shit, like destiny's not paying the bills, you know what I mean? And then one day I sort of like, I prayed for a sign. I was like, oh, I just need a sign, I just need something. And then I ended up going down to the library and reading a book. And the book was called An Angel Called My Name. And the girl in the book was, she had like, honestly, our lives were just so similar. It was just like absolutely crazy. Like, she was brought up by like a psychic family, and she sort of like run from it and tried to go to university and stuff. And it wasn't until like she went for a job in the mind, body, spirit industry that her whole life changed, you know. And now she's like a really well-known like author and stuff. Teresa Shung's her name. And so I set up again, like as a professional psychic as an adult, set up, and then after that, like my career just like completely took off. Like I won my Young Philosophy Award within like a year of setting up like as a professional, you know, like all these things just happened. And I think it was because like I'd stopped like running from that, you know what I mean? It
yes.
Was, like, I always ran, and like divination was at the back of me, sort of like pursuing me, you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Come and read your cards for people, you know what I mean?
And it's amazing when we align ourselves with what it is that we're supposed to do. You know, the doors open, sometimes like a floodgate. You know, everything just flying at you.
Even in like weird and very strange ways, like my life changed, like obviously in big ways, you know what I mean? Like big ways, I had like money and stuff like that, and followers and all that crap. But then even in like little ways, like it felt like the little blocks that were like in my way were suddenly like removed, you know what I mean? There was no more losing my library card, or no more like shit wouldn't print off on the computer, you know, like they were constantly happening that were wearing me down. My family were at the back, no, it's a sign, it's a sign. And then like even just the other day, she helped me when we were like talking about years ago when I couldn't get a job. She's like, "No, I always told you and that, you know, like things were going to happen, and these great things were going to happen to you and all the rest of it." But I just like I couldn't see it at the time, but looking back now, I was like, wow, you know, like it really did. Everything just changed, you know, once I went into divination professionally as an adult.
Yeah, and you know, I think it's phenomenal when I hear stories like that, because it always reminds me of one important lesson that I love to teach people all the time, which is sometimes we have to just get out of our own way and let God and Spirit push through whatever it is that they need. And sometimes we're our own worst enemies. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true, because even now, like if I'm working on something for my website, right, if like little things start to happen, you know, like if the little inconveniences, you know, like the computer suddenly turns off and all this stuff starts happening, I'll start to say to myself, this is a sign here, you know, like this isn't meant to be just now, and then I'll like store it away for something else. Because sometimes I am quite stubborn, I'll keep working against it, but then eventually I get to the point where I'm like, nah, like this is the wrong time, you know. And then it's funny because you can feel it, and intuitively I can feel it, that there's something wrong, you know what I mean? Like something weighing on me, like wow, this here isn't quite right, do you know what I mean? So then I sort of file it away. And it's funny because when I was growing up, like my grandparents, they'd always, they were like really superstitious, and they used to say things to me, and at the time I used to think, wow, these people are crazy. Even when I was a reader, I used to think, like, even when I'd started reading, I thought they were crazy, you know, like my granddad used to say things like, oh, I'm going to come back as like a fly and stuff, you know what I mean, and like my granny's always like killing flies, so my granddad used to say, I'm going to reincarnate as one. And I swear to God, now she's always, even in the winter, she's always got a fly will fly into her house, and she can't kill it, you know, she'll kill it and then it'll like reappear. And I'm like, you know what, all the things that they'd told me when I was growing up, and I used to think it was just like crazy, and now I'm like, wow, it's true.
Well, you know, Owen Ballard, who is in our chat group at the moment, says, you know, you don't have to control your thoughts. Just don't let them control you.
Yeah,
You know,
sure.
and it's one of those things that we tend to do as human beings is we try to control everything. And
Yeah.
as a diviner, you know, somebody who is connected spiritually, we can't be in control. You know, we can be in control of certain things on how we connect to spirit, how we pray, how we ask them to come and join us, you know, to pass messages. But once they begin, it's kind of one of those things that you're not the one in control. You kind of give control over to whether it's your guardian spirits, your ancestors, whatever guides you're working with, to let them come forth.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of the whole idea that, like, I'll always tell, like, people that I teach and anyone that I talk to about divination, because I'm just crazy and I go about talking about it all the time, is that, like, divination is a lifestyle in the sense that it's not just about that, oh, I'll sit down and I'll, like, throw my cards and I'll see what happens. Is that you have to live, like, that diviner's life. Do you know what I mean? Where
Yes.
you have to say to yourself, right, I know, like, I'm going to, like, practice what I preach here. Like, I know that I'm just going to leave this, and if it's meant to happen, it's going to happen. Like, the universe will find a way to make this easier for me, and I'm just going to go off and focus on other things or whatever. You know what I mean? And it's just, like, absolutely crazy how things can come together like that. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
But
You know,
it's quite comforting as well.
you know, I love all forms of divination. I can't practice all of them. Like, I was reading your online website, and one of the things I was reading was the trouble that you initially had with tarot.
Yeah.
I'm horrible with tarot. I tried for like 15 years. Couldn't learn, click, nothing at all. You know, and I fought. And I mean, I really tried, and I tried learning all the meanings. I tried, and it just wasn't clicking. I did watch a 2-hour video, which I kind of laughed at first, that said, you know, learn tarot in 2 hours. And surprisingly, things did click. But after starting to learn and going, oh, you know, these aren't as bad as I thought. And then I had the message from my spirit going, yeah, they're just not for me.
Yeah.
You know,
I know I'm like that, is that, like, in practice, right, there's certain forms of divination that I know them, I can teach them or whatever, but as the years have went on, I've just sort of lost the ability to do it for people in a way, you know what I mean? Like, say, like, it's like that with palmistry, right? Like, I know palmistry, I know it's like, it's crazy in that, but I don't know, I've just got this aversion to, like, touching people, like, practicing it gives me this, like, anxiety, I get this horrible feeling, you know what I mean? And I'm just like, this just isn't for me, you know what I mean? Like, it just, and it's really shit, because where I stay is that there's a lot of, like, Pakistani people in that, and Indians, and they are right into palmistry, you know, they're like, read my hand, and I'm like, no, I can't.
So you found Lenormand's.
Yeah.
And that really clicked kind of quickly for you.
Yeah, I learned how to read Lenormand in 2 days. I went and done, what I done was that tarot just stopped working for me altogether. I don't even know why it was, but it stopped working for me, and it actually happened while I was reading a client. I just couldn't read anymore. I don't know what it was. It was horrible, and I was working as a professional reader at the time. And I was going for a job interview for, like, a mind, body, spirit place. She was renting out the room, but basically she needed the people to read her, because she wasn't going to rent out rooms to people that weren't really psychic to give, like, her centre a bad name kind of thing. Right. So she says to me, she was like, oh, come and read me. And I agreed to it, and I only had, like, 2 days to go, and I was like, shit, I can't read, like, tarot, like, what am I going to do? So then I just knew, like, deep down, like, I do practice other forms of divination, but I knew that they, like, wouldn't work. So I went on, like, Wikipedia or wherever it was, and I was, like, looking at different methods of divination. Honestly, it was just terrible. And then I couldn't find one that I liked, and then I was on Facebook, and I don't know what had happened, if I'd been added to a group or whatever, but I'd seen Lenormand, and there was just something, like, my inner voice say, well, my spirits had spoke to me, they were like, you're going to learn that, you know, you're going to learn how to do that. And I says, right, I've got, like, 2 days. So I'd ordered I paid like next day delivery for a deck of the Lenormand cards, and it was like £7, which is the equivalent of about over $10 just for the next day delivery for these cards. And I'd ordered them, and I just started learning Lenormand with like stuff on websites and stuff on like Facebooks, like watching other readers like reading stuff. And then the cards came, and they were like the wrong cards. You know what I mean? I was like, fuck, what am I going to do? So I'd ordered another deck, and I was waiting on it coming, and I'd had to leave for the bus because you need to get the bus into Edinburgh. And it was like 11 o'clock or so, and I had to leave. I was like, fuck. And as I was leaving, the postman was coming with this other deck. So my Lenormand deck ended up costing me about 50 quid after I'd paid for like both the next day deliveries kind of thing. And I took the shrink wrap off on the bus, never even performed a reading, never performed a Lenormand reading, and I went in there, and that was actually one of the best readings that I'd ever performed. And she like gave me the job like there and then on the spot. She was like, right, that was brilliant, here's like the job. And it's funny because she said to me at the time, she was like, wow, how long have you been reading cards for? I was like, I've been reading cards since I was 7, but I never told her, I've only been reading like
32 minutes.
After that, all like my professional face-to-face readings, that's what I read, where I have been doing it for the past like few years. So yeah, like if you're really called to a form of divination, you can learn it like really quick. I don't recommend people do that because it was like really stressful. I was sitting on the bus like so nervous and shitting myself, but it just all came together, and I've been reading with that system ever since.
You know, I love Lenormands. You know, the other thing I'd love too is the tea cards, which are based off of traditional tea leaf symbols in a tea leaf cup.
I read a book by Mary Kay Greer. It's on. I bought it from that Lulu Publishing, and basically, like in the book, she was given the argument for that, like Lenormand cards were originally based on like tea leaf reading and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They were.
I do sort of see how like they are sort of linked kind of thing. Yeah, like if you believe her theories and stuff, I think that it's true because she gave like a pretty good argument for it. You know what I mean?
And the thing I love, and here's the thing, you know, I love both. You know, because Lenormands are kind of very structured, very set in their way. You know, for me, tea cards are a lot more fluid and intuitive. Yeah. There's a lot more play, you know, when it comes to free-flowing information. You know, yeah. Lenormands are like that in your face. Yeah. You know, so I love them both, you know, and looking at, you know, how you can tap in. You know, when I was reading your website, you know, one of the things that you also mentioned, because, you know, I always want to instill a little bit of info, a little tip or something for our listeners to become a better diviner, because I believe there's a difference between being a diviner and being just a reader. You know, you state in your website, and I do it all the time myself, that you really need to have a base and a connection to your ancestors, your spirits, your guides, if you want to develop yourself into a diviner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know,
I do believe that. Like honestly, this sounds really shitty and judgmental, right? But anyone I think that doesn't believe that, I'm sort of like, well, are you really a diviner? Do you know what I mean?
Right, and you know, I ruffle feathers all the time because if you're not connecting to a spirit, and if you're not connecting to the divine energies of the universe, you're basically reading images, meanings, and putting things together, but you're not getting underlying information, specifics, messages that are designed specifically for that person that might not show up directly in the cards, but they point you in the direction and they show you what these actually have to do with.
Yeah. And I think the thing that really puts people off about making statements like that is that they automatically assume when you start talking about spirit work that you talk about, that you mean, you have to be able to link with the other person's spirits or whatever. When really, like when I say things like that, I don't mean that you necessarily need to link with the other person's spirits, but you need to link with your own spirits. Do you know what
right.
I mean?
Yes.
And it's not even, I think some people think it's quite an elitist thing to say, because then they're like, oh well, only mediums then can perform readings, and that's not necessarily true. When everyone can have that link, like with their own spirits and their own like guides and their ancestors and stuff like that. Like that's a birthright. That's a divine birthright. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Anyone can do it.
You know,
it's not an elitist thing to say. Do you know what I mean? That
no, it's not. You know, it's a difference between, you know, holding a book and opening it up and actually seeing the information. And whether you, like, when I do readings, I call upon all my ancestors, I call upon my spirits, the ones that I work with, the ones that work with me when I'm doing divination. But I also call upon my clients' ancestors to come forward, their guides, to help provide information directly from them and their spiritual frame. Because when you work together spiritually with your ancestors, things are going to come out in your reading that aren't going to come out in just cards. You know, it's a more deeply rooted connection. You know, and like I say, I upset and ruffle feathers all the time.
That's why I like Lenormand as well, is that because I feel like you're working with something that's very like symbolic, right? Like Lenormand, even like interpreting dreams or whatever, is that the symbols can sort of like kickstart things in you, kickstart messages in you that you wouldn't even expect or associate with those cards or whatever. Like I was reading my pal the other day, Jeff, and I seen like the Lenormand key, and something about seeing it just sort of put this idea in my head about like I'm sitting on a motorbike and turning the key, but with like his left hand, but he's right-handed. And I kept on getting it like over and over in my mind, and I was really drawn to like this key and stuff. And I mentioned it to him, and he was like, yeah, he says like he had to do some like motorbike exam, and in the exam is the only time that like he has to sit on the bike and turn it like with his left hand kind of thing. And he's like, that's a really strange thing for you to pick up on. And he was like, how do you know that? And I was like, well, it's like the spirits. I'm like seeing that card. So hanging something in me, you know what I mean?
Right.
I don't know what it is.
Excuse me.
And I think sometimes is that there's some forms of divination, like say like tarot or whatever. If you spend too much time with like the wrong kinds of readers or whatever, they can sort of put too many ideas in your head and make you too focused on reading the cards as opposed to just going with the flow, like what you do like with Lenormand kind of thing. You know, like there's like too many rules with tarot readers online, man. You know what I mean? Like they're more interested in talking about their rules and what they are, and like talking about is your lover going to come back or whatever. You know?
Yes, and you know, I'm not one for rules. Well, I can't say that. Let me rephrase. I'm one for rules when I'm first starting to learn a divination system. Yeah. After I've learned it, the language, putting things together, I free flow everything. I'm a very intuitive reader. You know, I'm a medium, you know, so I draw upon everything that I know. So, you know, like Karen of Tea with Karen, who's also in the chat group, was, you know, also stating tea cards or tessiography were designed back in like 1794 pre-Madame Lenormand. You know, and many people aren't aware that the Lenormand cards as we know them today are symbols from tessiography, from the tea cards, or from the tea leaf, you know, the tea leaf readings. You know, you mentioned on your site, you know, and that was the divination and fortunetelling.com. You know, why people's divination doesn't work. You know, and I find it interesting because, you know, I'm sitting there looking at it and I'm reading through it and I understand a lot of it, and a lot of our listeners may not, you know, realize that sometimes a particular form of divination just may not be for you.
Yeah. And to be completely honest with you, I couldn't even say like 100%, oh, this is the reason why it's not for you. But if you're a psychic, we'll just throw that word out. A lot of people don't like the word psychic. I like the word psychic. But if you're a psychic, if you're really interested in divination and stuff, but there's one method of divination and you just can't get it, and it's just you feel blocked anytime you try to learn it, then it's just not for you for whatever reason. It might not be that it's not for you like in the future or whatever. It's just that it's not for you now. Do you know what I mean? So
yes.
Why fight against it? Like, find another method.
Yeah, and I think we fall into that rut, when we're learning. We get focused on, oh my God, these cards are beautiful. I just love these. I really want to learn this. And then we beat ourselves up and we fight and we try and it doesn't click, but we keep going and we keep going and hoping that eventually we're going to get to that aha stage. And sometimes the only way we can get to that is to say, you know what, right now it's not me. I have to put these aside. And, maybe I'll pick them back up again in 6 months or a year. Maybe I just need to develop something more,
Yeah, I think that as well, and that sometimes as well as that it could be that the right book for you or teacher for you or website for you hasn't came along yet, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Is that I don't think I would have learned how to read Lenormand quick enough if I hadn't seen the way that all the other readers were interpreting them in like the Facebook groups. But so if I would have went to have learned Lenormand like 10 years before when Facebook wasn't a thing, I probably would have struggled more than what I did 10 years later. Like things change so quickly as that maybe like just the way that you learn isn't a thing yet. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
So sometimes you just have to wait it out, or maybe there's just something that inside you just sort of clicks and you're like, you know what, I get this now. You know what I mean? Like there's something in me that's clicked. Now it's time. Now I can read tarot, read Lenormand, interpret dreams or whatever.
Yeah, and see, like for me, I'm a very visual person. Mm-hmm. So if I pick up a book, I'm not going to get anything from it. I mean, I love to read, but for some reason, it's just not me. But when I watch other people and I see them do their spreads and I see how they break things down, like when I'm in groups, I always do the teacher method of showing a reading. I'll say what this card is and has to do with and what it has to do with when I'm connecting it to the next card. It's always so that others that are watching can see that, this card plus this card for me is equaling this, and this is how I'm getting my answer. Because I know that everybody learns different. I can watch a video and some things will just click. I can read 50 books and might walk away with one thing. So we have to learn to utilize the gifts that we have, knowing how it is that we already learn. What makes you learn things the easiest, and find a method that teaches that, because that way it'll help help everything to click.
And I think another thing as well is that a lot of readers can get really stressed out about like being right all the time, or even if they've just started like the method of divination. Do you know what I mean? And
yes.
The best way to sort of master the method of, the only way really to master the method of divination is to actually give readings. Do you know what I mean? But a lot of readers sort of will try to learn a method of divination, but they'll sit on it for a very long time and not be out there like giving readings or practicing, even like just readings on friends or whatever. They're like, no, I don't want to read people, I'm not sure what I'm doing and stuff. And then it's like, but you never really know what you're doing until like you're doing it. You know what I mean? It's like reading
right.
about knitting, never actually knitting anything. You know, you can read all you want, but it's not going to work.
Yeah, and you have to get feedback. It's one of the great things about having Facebook groups, and being able to do little readings and get feedback, from people that you read, because as a learning element for people that are, trying to become diviners and honing their skills, getting feedback is very important. I never worry myself about being right or being wrong. I just pass whatever messages. Now, I'm not always 100%, and sometimes it could be a couple of years before somebody comes back to me and says, hey, do you remember when you said this about 3 years ago? And at the time, all they did was shoot down, say, nope, that's not right. Nope, you're 100% wrong. And that happens.
Yeah.
You know, it comes with the territory, because time is, you know, doesn't really exist the way that we see it. You know, we tap into the past, the present, the future all at one time. So sometimes time frames can be off, but we still see things coming. So I never write off anything as, okay, so I was wrong. A lot of times it's...
The thing is that a lot of readers is that if they're told that they're wrong,
Yes.
is that they can get like really discouraged or whatever. But it's that as you go on in like your journey and you get more practice and you read more people and you develop more spiritually, the voice inside of you becomes stronger. So you know when you know you're right. You know what I mean? Like I'll sit in front of people and they'll say to me, and that's a confidence I never had even like 10 years ago. You know what I mean? Like even when I was a young child, you know, if someone was like, no, that was wrong, I'd be like, oh, okay, and that. But nowadays, I'm like, no, I know I'm right, you know.
and confidence, yeah, and you know, a lot of it comes down to confidence, you know, and it's not just confidence in being able to read the cards. It's confidence in trusting in your own abilities, your connection with spirit. And if you don't have a connection with spirit or ancestors, you won't have that confidence, because you're not pulling on that universal energy and that spiritual connection that sits there and tells you, it's like, hey, here's the message, here's the information, you know, here's that kick in the gut, you know, that you know you're right. And if you work...
The thing is that, like, I always sort of encourage, like, well, I always encourage students or anyone I'm talking to divination about, is that if they develop like a relationship with their spirits in their real life, they will develop that confidence to know that they're always there, helping with their readings as well. So say like I see signs a lot, like I get signs from certain spirits, like my granddad sends me a bee, and like my great granny sends me like a rainbow and stuff. And I see those signs all the time, everywhere. I hear like those words, like, and I know, like, I've seen them in enough strange places, and it's happened that many times that I know that they're constantly there. So once you know that they're constantly there in your life supporting you, then knowing that they're there during like your divination is just an extension of that. Do you know what I mean? They're not going to run away now that you're performing everything.
No, they're actually going to get closer to you. And the more you work with them and connect with them, the stronger that link becomes.
And that's the thing, is that they have a vested interest in watching you do well. Do you know what I mean? So it's not like they're just going to be like, hey, like, let's run away, or let's tell her a bunch of shit, you know what I mean? They're going to help you do well, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think people need to realize that, you know, work with your ancestors and develop that connection on a regular basis, but also remember to provide them with rules, limits, and boundaries. You don't want them coming anytime they feel like it, you know. Mine, over the years, you know, I have sat down and said, look, here is my method. You know, I will light up my ancestral altar. I will knock 3 times. I ring a bell, or I shake a rattle, and I'll do my prayers, and I'll call them. They also know that if I light a candle and I have water on my reading table, the minute I light my candle and I start doing my prayers, I've opened up the door. They know that's time. If I'm asleep, they know don't bother me, don't come in that room. You know, you have to let them know when you're, you know, available and when you want them. If you start that early, that starts to develop into a pattern where spirit knows the keys to say, okay, that switch is on, that switch is off. So it's not an all the time. Because, you know, before I developed that, it was crazy. They would bother me in the bathroom, taking a shower, doing my business, you know, and they would just pass messages all the time. And it was just like, that's just too much. I don't need to know it all the time. Let's try to fit it within these certain time frames and during these particular areas where I'm working.
Mm-hmm. And not just that as well, is that I found that if you're a nervous reader, say if like you panic before like every reader and you've not really got confidence or whatever, is that if you have a set sort of like ritual or routine or whatever that you go through, it helps to calm your nerves because you know what to expect.
Yes.
Usually when people are nervous before readings, it's because their routine is chaotic, their life is chaotic, spirits round about them are chaotic, you know, their linking is a hit or miss, they don't really trust their spirits, they don't trust their routine, they don't know what's happening, they're fumbling for the address for their seeker on Google 5 minutes before they have to leave, you know. So nervous, a lot of it is because of the unknown, you know, because of like the unexpected. So if you sort of if you're like a nervous reader, if you fix those aspects of your life, then your readings do become like much easier. And not just that, is that it's easier then to like sell yourself as a reader because you're not apprehensive, you're not worried about performing your readings as much.
Right. And you bring up a great point too in reference to, you know, I call it ritual. You know, when I knock on my table and I light everything up and I shake my bell, you know, and I call my spirits, you know, and I do my prayers, that's a ritual because I do it every single time. And doing those things and doing my prayers and calling on the ancestors helps to tune me in and get me out of my own head so that I can actually be in the space that I need. You know.
Yeah, and the thing is that you can always spot a reader that's too far in their own head. Like, I had a reading at an event not too long ago, and the girl was actually like, you can tell, like I could tell she was quite gifted and stuff, and she did say one or two quite detailed things, but I could tell that she was too into like her own head kind of thing. She made a lot of like assumptions and stuff, you know, and I'm just like, nah, like you've got a lot of work to do, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I see it in Facebook groups, and you know, part of me laughs, part of me cringes, part of me cries, you know. And what it is people that I see fish.
Yeah.
You know, they can't stick to a meaning or an answer that they're giving, so it's more of, well, I feel this, or it could be, or maybe. And, you know, it's the lack of confidence and the lack of the connection with spirit that, you know, doesn't get them to that point where they can sit there and say, hey, look, you know what? You want to know if so-and-so is coming back. And as a reader, I have the privilege and choice of being able to change whatever question my clients give to me to get a better answer for them. So a lot of times it's not a yes or a no for me. I like details. So I'll take a yes or a no and I'll say, what does this person need to know about this situation? And I'll let them know. It's like, look, I don't see this happening. I said, but this is what Spirit tells me. And it tells me that, you know, stop going backwards. Stop looking back at the past, you know. Sever that tie and free yourself so you can move forward. And allow the universe to send you the love that you're looking for because you're blocking yourself. And, you know, I do predictive, but I also do what you need to know.
Yeah. I think that's one like major misconception of people that don't really understand like predictive readings, is that like a lot of readers online, when they find out you're a predictive reader, they like to shoot you down and be like, oh, you don't help your clients, you don't give advice or whatever. And I'm like, well, obviously, like, I give advice. That's what you're looking into the future for, to give them fucking advice, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not just going to be like, right, he's not coming back, like, give me no advice.
Right, but you know, there are a lot of people that do that. You know, there are a lot of people that will say yes or no, and that's it.
Yeah, I think as a human, but it's very, very difficult not to get your bit in, do you know what I mean? Not to, like, give you advice and stuff like that. And I think the thing is that you tend to find that a lot of diviners have had like quite hard lives, like from when they've been quite young, is that they've been through a lot of different situations, so they can give advice, do you know what I mean? They can say, you know, I was in your situation as well, and this is how like I advise that you handle it, or this is how I advise that you don't handle it, or whatever kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, and you know, it's important that as diviners and spiritual people, that we give people the information to help them get past where they are and to reach whatever goal, that they're looking to get to.
Yeah, because I absolutely hate seeing people that were in the situation that I was in the sense that for, I'd say, about 4 years, like before I was a reader after like college, and before I was reading professionally as an adult after college and stuff, is that life didn't change. Everything stood still for about 4 years, and it's really hard to read people like that, do you know what I mean? Because I'm just like, I've got nothing to tell you, like you're just going to be sitting on the couch watching Law and Order for the next like 4 years doing nothing, and it's really, and you can get like really bad reviews for it. That's the thing, is that you need to be honest, but as well, like I've had some shit reviews from people that I've had to tell that to, but I can guarantee you that those people are still sitting on the couch now, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I see it in groups a lot, people that are stuck. And, I do a lot of free mini readings in a lot of different groups. And I always post, I don't do in certain groups, health, legal, or pregnancy questions. I also state, form a good question.
In the UK, that's a funny thing. You're not meant to do readings like that, so I tend to stay away from those types of questions as well, because you can get yourself into bother, you know what I mean? So
yeah, I mean, we're not medical people. We can't give medical advice, But I also tell them, just like, formulate a decent, well thought out question. And if you're stuck in life, I'm not your reader. Because until you get to a point where you're ready to move and be unstuck, I can't do much for you.
I know.
Now, if they tell me that they've been stuck and they're ready to move forward, they need to know what they need to do to move forward, I have no problem doing the reading. But if they're stuck, it's like, I can't tell you anything that others have already told you.
I found this really interesting, like I've noticed this really interesting trend, and is that when I was keeping myself stuck, say when I was like undercharging for my readings, I was keeping myself stuck, and I seemed to attract a lot of clients that were also stuck by doing that to myself. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah.
It wasn't even that I was undercharging. I was like only reading for like people who were unemployed or whatever. Even like the people who had the money, who were stuck in their lives, were like coming to me for readings, and I was like, why? Like, it's funny that like the people who you read sort of become a reflection of your life. Do you know what I mean by that? It's kind of bizarre, like when that happens, Like, it's like you sort of begin to surround yourself with people who are in a similar situation to yourself, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then once I sort of like raised my prices and targeted better and things, then I started to attract clients that were also like good in business or whatever. It was really bizarre.
Well, no, it goes hand in hand. Karen in our group said, it's like wanting the love of their life, and they don't get off their butt, off the couch, and they're kind of waiting for, Mr. Right, but, he's not going to be the one coming delivering the pizza.
Yeah.
And Owen Ballard, says that he doesn't really, he won't predict. His point in doing readings is to offer assistance, because he believes that nothing is ever written in stone and that anyone can change if they decide to. And I do agree with that, because even predictive reading, sometimes is wrong, and that's because, we're going to give you a warning and here's some things that are coming, but you still have the ultimate choice as to what it is that you're going to do, which direction you're going to move, if you are going to follow advice or not follow advice, if you're going to keep going along the same way in life that you're going where nothing changes. So anybody can change if they really want to.
Yeah.
I still love to do predictive reading because, I just kind of enjoy it. And I always couple it with, here's things that you need to know, or here's things that you should work on. Here's the information that Spirit's giving to me, so that if you are ready to change, if you want to reach a particular goal, here's some steps that you can have that should help you get there. You know.
Yeah, I like that as well. I like to do, like, I'll say, oh, they'll ask me a question like, oh, is my business going to be successful or not? And usually I can sort of tell if it's like set in stone, like no it's not, or if it's or if it's sort of like changeable, do you know what I mean? Like, oh well, you need to get your hand out your arse and sort of like push forward kind of thing. Like, I think that too many people assume that if you believe that people have like destinies or whatever, is that you automatically think that everything is set in stone and that nothing can be overcame. And that's not really true, because obviously like humans have free will. Like, humans with their free will can sort of run from their destiny for like years and push against it, you know what I mean? Like,
I'm destined to be a millionaire, but you know what? Unless I work for it, it ain't gonna happen.
Yeah.
You know, and it is true. We do run, you know, from destiny, and sometimes knowing what we're supposed to do, you know, scares the crap out of people.
Yeah. For all my life, I'd sort of had this like vision in my mind, is that even like before I knew what the internet was, I used to like think about a book, right? And I used to say to myself, oh, I'd love to have a book that had every form of divination in it, and you could like learn all these meanings and stuff. And I used to say, oh, I'm going to write this book. And then when I got older, when the internet became a thing, I used to say, oh, I'm going to have that website, I'm going to have this big like divination website kind of thing. And I'd always sort of had that like within me kind of thing, but I knew that doing it was going to, like, honestly, my website was so much fucking work. Like, it was just an unreal amount of work. Like,
I know the feeling.
Climbing a mountain, you know what I mean? But I knew that I would constantly have this drive within me, like niggling away at me, telling me like, do it kind of thing, eh? And then creating it to get to the point where it's at now, after like this website here, it's only like 13 months old. I get about 160,000 views a month.
Oof.
So from nothing to like that in like 13 months just sort of showed me like, yeah, this is what I was meant to be doing, you know what I mean? Like, things weren't progressing when I was fighting against it, you know, when I was just sitting playing the Xbox or like twiddling my thumbs. But once I'd done it, the site just really took off in like an unreal amount of time, do you know what I mean? It's just unreal how quick that things began to happen once I'd just said, right, I'm gonna finally do this, you know?
Right when you opened up and said, I'm done running, I'm done fighting, you know, and you put it in God and Spirit's hands, you know, you sat there and said, if this is what I'm supposed to be doing, you know, let me go ahead and do this, because you asked for the signs. You know, Spirit will normally put those signs in front of you, but you have to act on them. You know, it kind of reminds me of a story of, you know, the flood, and these people getting stuck on their house, and they're on their roof, and they're sitting there asking God for a sign to save them. And, you know, 3 boats go by, you know, and the guy on the roof's going, oh, no, I'm waiting for God to save me. I'm waiting for God to save me and give me a sign. And the guy ends up passing away, you know, drowning in the water. And he gets up to heaven, and he sat there and he asked God, just like, God, why did you let me die? You know, I asked you, you know, for a sign, and I asked you to help me. And God turned around and said, I did. I sent you 3 boats. You just never saw them, and you never accepted the gift, you know. And when we don't actively look at the sign and accept things and take that sign as, hey, you know what, I asked for something, you know, don't turn the blind eye, you know.
Yeah.
Things are put in your path for a particular reason. And they're not always good. Sometimes, you know, you have things put in your path because you need to learn something.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, I do, like, I totally get that. Like, there was one point in time in that I just completely was, I thought that all signs were sort of like positive and stuff, and then I'd started to get like bad omens as well, and I was like, fuck, like. But then I look back now, even I can honestly say and stuff, even though like bad things have happened and stuff like that, like I look back now and I say to myself, you know what, like I'm in a pretty good fucking position now, like I like the way that life is, even though like, so is a bad omen ever really a bad omen? Do you know what I mean? When you look back and you say, you know what, if that never happened, like I wouldn't be here. And
Right.
And I swear to God, I would rather be doing this than like working at one of those shitty jobs that I'd applied for, like McDonald's and that, just because like I was desperate. Do you know what I mean? Like I was so desperate, so I'd applied for like to work like 6 hours in a Scottish McDonald's like a week, honestly. And I look back and I think I'd rather be doing this than have got one of those jobs. At the time, I would have killed for one of those jobs. You know, I used to cry and be like, why have I failed the personality test? You know.
I think you have a beautiful personality. You know.
No, I'm terrible at personality tests. Right? I sit in front of them and I'm like, I don't know what you want. Like.
No.
That's the right answer.
You know, I look at, bad omens, bad signs, things that happen to me, that are not pleasant. I've been through my own crap in my entire life. And there's always something to learn from each and every single thing.
Yeah.
And the thing is looking at it for what it actually is and what it is that we need to learn and actually learning it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's totally true. Like,
So what types of things do you teach on your website? Do you do online courses or do you do them all in person or?
I just launched one of my psychic development courses. That was last month, and then but I'd sort of been slithering between like doing like releasing like each course like one at a time, or just like having like a yearly like fee kind of thing, so everyone can take like all courses kind of thing. And I'd went with like the 1-by-1 courses, but honest to God, so many things I just started I just got signs that I was like, this is the wrong way to go. So at the end of July, I have like tarot, Lenormand courses and stuff, and I'm going to launch them in my like a membership option. So folk will pay like a yearly fee and they can learn a different method of divination like all the time. I'll do like monthly workshops and stuff like that, which I think is a lot better, because I think that realistically a lot of diviners don't have like $300 for like a course every couple of months. Do you know what I mean? So if they're just paying like a lower fee every year, it's so much better. But and then now I have a tarot spread ebook as well on my website. So that's basically how the site makes money. But the membership thing won't launch till like July.
And I kind of think membership things are pretty decent when you want to learn multiple different types of divination and be on an always learning, mode. Owen Ballard, says there's a fundamental in magic. You can do ritual, but you also have to take action in the material world as well. Which is a valid point, because, even people that do spiritual work or magic, we can stoke the fire. We can open the doors. We can start getting things moving. But if you're looking for a job and you're not getting out and putting in applications, it's not going to happen. You still, they go hand in hand. You have to have the physical work to go along with the spiritual work. It's not, okay, there it is. It's not poof on like TV where I'm going to wiggle my nose and all of a sudden, there it is. We have to work for it.
Like blowing up a balloon, do you know what I mean? It's like, well, you have to breathe into the balloon, do you know what I mean? You can't just be breathing into yourself,
Right. You have to breathe life into whatever it is that you're looking to do. Now you mentioned
action, do you know what I mean? Like, not even just spirit, just like the universe in general. It's that you have to get energy moving, otherwise it's just going to stay still. Do you know
exactly?
What I mean? So
yes.
Even, not even just is that if you're struggling against something and say like you're struggling to get a job or struggling for a new relationship, if you find that you're doing like the same thing every day, even just like go for a fucking walk, you know what I mean? Like do something new.
Yes.
Give spirit that opportunity to sort of like to send you signs or whatever. You're more likely to see a sign when you're out and about walking in the woods than what you are if you're lying on your couch feeling sorry for yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like you can meet people or whatever, like if you're doing the same shite every day, if you're just lying feeling sorry for yourself, then nothing new will ever come of that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and you have to sometimes, when you're stuck or when things aren't working and things aren't moving the way you want, your methods aren't working. Change things up, do things different, shake that energy around. If you're not getting out or you're just going to the regular bar and that's the only place you go trying to meet people, go somewhere else.
I actually see that quite a lot, like readers who like complain about like their businesses not doing well or whatever, is that they'll sit on like one social media platform all day and then they'll moan about how they're not getting like any reading clients or whatever. And then it's like, right, well, your marketing methods aren't working, like try something else, you know what I mean? And then they're like, no, but I don't want to try something else because like this works. And I'm like, but it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. You don't have the business, And sometimes, we get stuck at looking at, this is what I know, this is what I know, this is what I've always known, that we don't realize that what I have always known may not be working, so let's do something different. Even if it's taking a business course, learning from people that are successful, hey, how do you do this? There are a number of people that offer courses, on building your practice, even in, psychic businesses.
Yeah. See, I tell my students this quite a lot, is that one thing that I noticed once I developed my business and I was successful, and I don't think this is a thing just in psychic businesses, I think this is a thing in like all businesses, is that if you're successful and people don't understand why, they usually just assume that it's because of like luck, or they assume that it's because like you're doing something like seedy or wrong, like to pull these people in, because that's their perception. They can't see any way other than that for doing things right. Do you know what I mean? But I always tell them, like, don't be so quick to like mistrust people who are getting results. Do you know what I mean? Like, if people are getting results, like follow them around and find out why. Like, what are they doing that you're not doing? Like, how are they making it work? Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. It's the old modeling, thing. If you want a business to work and work well, find somebody that is doing it already and doing it well, and model yourself or your business plan after what they do to get where they are. And it's always a work.
Another thing as well is that, like, I found that readers, and I made this mistake, is that when I was first marketing my business and like it was really hard at the beginning, I was trying to market it and stuff, is that I made the mistake of asking other unsuccessful people for advice. Do you know, like I would sit in like Facebook groups and I would ask them, or someone give me help, and they would give me the shittest advice because they had the same problems like what I had. Do you know what I mean? So
yep.
Trying to avoid, if you're going to ask for advice, ask people who are like doing it, not people that are also like sitting there struggling like you, complaining that they've got no money. You know what I mean?
Yes. If you model yourself after a bad business, you can expect to have bad business. Now, you mentioned also what you call easy mediumship. Can you explain what easy mediumship actually is?
I think that easy mediumship is more so when you build up that relationship with your own spirits first before you try to link with other people's spirits. That's what I mean by easy mediumship, because that's something that comes really naturally. And when you build up that relationship with your own spirits, almost naturally, you build up the ability to link with other people's spirits, and it even happens like unexpectedly. Do you know, when you have that personal relationship with your spirits in like day-to-day life, and you notice the signs that they send you, and you sort of listen to their voice that appears like in your head or whatever, is that naturally your spirituality grows, because spirit reveals itself to you like more and more and more. A lot of people make the mistake of, they try to do it like the wrong way around. They try to link with other people's spirits first, and that's the hard way. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't work, and then they get discouraged.
And you can't. I mean, you really can't link with somebody else's spirit unless you have a connection with your own, because your spirits, your guides, are the ones that are bringing forward the other spirits to communicate. So, I mean, it's really difficult to try and communicate with somebody outside your spiritual frame if you don't have your spiritual frame built,
Yeah.
and if you're in block mode, so you're going to cause yourself, a lot of difficulty,
But I think a lot of readers, or like aspiring readers or whatever, like they watch things like John Edwards or James Van Praagh or whatever. Like they watch them giving like mediumship demonstrations and stuff, and that's all they're seeing. But all they're seeing is them linking with other people's spirits, so they assume that that's how you do it. Do you know what I mean? Most people don't realise that it doesn't work like that. Like that's sort of like the end result, kind of. Well, not the end result, but that's really far on in like your journey, kind of thing. That people who watch those shows, that they don't realise that these people have spent years working with their own spirits first before they've even linked with anybody else. Do you know what I mean?
I do. In a lot of the spiritual traditions that I, am part of, a lot of what I do is working with my ancestors. And the number one thing I tell everybody that wants to be a diviner, do any kind of spiritual work, is build up that connection with your own ancestors. Set up a small little, ancestral altar, call them, sit down, talk to them, pray, develop a day-to-day connection and relationship like you would have with your own personal family that's alive.
And I think as well is that like a lot of people make the mistake that if you build up that personal connection and you notice them round about you, they communicate with you in their dreams and send you signs and shit like that, is that once you do that, it becomes such an ingrained part of your life that it's effortless. But if you think that the answer to like spirituality is waking up at 3 a.m. to go and do yoga on the fucking beach and get some sado to take pictures of you for Instagram, like if you think that that's like spirituality and living off of fucking kale or whatever it is, then you're going to have a hard time. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it should be a part of your life, it should
Yes.
be an authentic part of your life. Do you know what I mean? That so much so that the people round about you probably wouldn't even notice that, like you're subtly communicating with like your spirits or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Is that it has to be a part of your life.
Yeah,
it can't just
I mean,
be
it's
something that you're like, right, 3 a.m. I'm going to commit to this shit, and then you commit to it for about 4 days, and then you're like, fuck that, putting the alarm clock on snooze. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it is a daily, everyday, lifestyle. It's not, many of us that are diviners or spiritual workers, we do our prayers every day. We sit in front of our altars every day. We talk and communicate with our spirits. Sometimes we do it, when we're on the bus. There's always internal dialogue. There's always connectivity, to that energy. The same as, waking up, having a cup of coffee, or going to Dunkin' Donuts, or going to yoga on the beach, which you think is, the biggest spiritual thing. But, your ancestors should come first and foremost to anything else, because they're the ones that make up a big part of your spiritual frame, your guides, the ones that are there for you and want the best for you out of life.
Yeah.
And
effortless. Once it's that ingrained part of your life, then it becomes really, really like effortless. It's not like it's something that that you're like, oh my god, I need to go and do this or whatever. Like you do these things without even thinking about it, because like I said, like being a diviner is a lifestyle. Like I am a diviner. You become a diviner. You know what I mean? You're not just someone who just like reads cards or reads like astrology charts or whatever, and it does apply to every method of like divination. Like you'll see online some people saying shit like, oh, astrology is mathematical and stuff like that. Well, that might be true, like to an extent, but like what interpretations to use and stuff based on like your internal dialogue and your spirits and stuff like that when you practice like astrology or things like that, just like how you practice any other like method of divination. So it even applies when like the method of divination might be like mathematical or whatever. Like you from like your spirits when to use like certain techniques and when to not use certain techniques or whatever. You know what I mean? Right.
And if you don't have that, you're not really divining. Owen Ballard said, it might sound kind of trite, but the only stupid thing is assuming that repeating the same thing over and over is going to bring you a different outcome. And that had to do with our conversation that we were just having about, business and modeling yourself, after somebody that already succeeds. And if you've tried and you've failed, you need to do something different. Don't do the same thing. I do want to thank, Karen, of Tea with Karen, who's in the group, Owen Ballard, Wilma Wilson, who joined with us and have been sitting listening to us and been active in the chat room. I want to also mention, the Mile High Conjure Gala, which is coming up in September, where you can find out information at conjuregala.com. They've got some wonderful people presenting. Candelo Cambisa, Elaine Bryant, Beverly Smith, Professor Ames, Professor Charles Porterfield, and Ambrosine Laguerre, Michelle Jackson, Michael Cardenas, Hoodoo Senmois, and Miss Aida, as well as Loretta Leedsman. They're going to be teaching real-world conjure, out in Colorado. Is it Colorado? Well, it's the end of September. You can find out the information at conjuregala.com. I also want to give a shout out to Candelo. He's got his show on Spreaker. It's 12 o'clock somewhere with, Candelo Cambisa of Candelo's Corner, who's been the longest running spiritual show, on the airwaves. And, Tea with Karen. Tea with Karen just launched her own T-card divination courses. And people can find out about those by going to teawithkaren.com. That's Karen with a K-A-I. So I'm sorry, K-A-R-I-N. So teawithkaren.com. How do our listeners, get a hold of you if they want to get a reading or, learn some, learn some classes, learn from you from your classes?
I tend not to read online as much anymore because online are where a lot of crazy people are. But I tend to focus more so on my readings for face to face and things. I just stopped reading online about a year ago. Sometimes I do open up for readings, but I also do obviously my teaching and stuff through divination and fortune telling. So that's divinationandfortunetelling.com. That's the website. No dashes or that in between the letters.
So that's divinationandfortunetelling.com. No dashes, periods, or the word the. It's just divinationandfortunetelling.com. Which also reminds me that, our up-and-coming guests, how to contact our listener, how to contact our wonderful guests and readers is also available on the divinationtable.com. You'll find a list of all the up-and-coming shows and episodes, a link for contacting our wonderful guests, which I'll be posting your information up later tonight. Is there anything that you'd like to share with our audience and, who may be wanting to become better diviners?
Better diviners. I think that is that, first of all, obviously, if you've already got that connection with your spirits and you think that you're going in the right direction in that way, I would say that finding the right method of divination is very important. And another thing is that giving readings to anyone and everyone that crosses your path is quite important as well for developing things, because there is certain techniques and stuff, especially with card reading and things, is that there is certain techniques that you only learn from yourself. You only learn once you're an experienced reader, once you've been doing it for a very long time. So get as many readings in as possible, find the right method of divination for you, and obviously link with your spirits and stuff, and have confidence as well. Don't be a shite bag.
Yeah, I mean, confidence is a huge thing, and you don't have to go out like I'm a divinaholic. You know, I love every form of divination. Not that I can do them all, but if I put my mind to it, I can learn pretty much almost any system other than the tarot, because we just don't click. You know, there are ones that I just click with, and those are the primary go-tos. The others I learn because I love divination, but find something that clicks and that you work well with, and stick with that one thing, because, I'd rather be good at one thing than crap at a bunch of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll always have that one like method of divination that will be like your focus, even if it's only your focus for like say like 5 to 10 years or whatever, is that you'll find that there's always that method of divination, or even like 1 or 2 methods of divination that you really excel in.
Yeah, and that's
so it's better to find them than to go off on a tangent. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Half learning shit,
learn one thing and learn it well. It was always one of the things that my godmother used to teach me and used to tell me all the time. She's like, you don't have to be the best at everything, but, if you're going to be the best at something, choose one thing that you're good at and keep building, and read for everybody. I mean, you might not like a person or their energy, or maybe you don't like their question, read it anyway. The more that you can read on different situations, different types of people, different energies, the more you're going to get out of it, the more you're going to learn, not just as a diviner, but if you decide to get into doing readings publicly, you are going to deal with a different type of client all the time. They're all going to have their own problems, their own issues, their own way of handling things. Some are more open than others. Others are really closed off. And, the more you do it, the more you will become better at what it is that you're doing. So I wanted to take a moment to say thank you for joining us tonight. I've had a wonderful time. I mean, you're an awesome person. I love your energy. I've been kind of like buzzing all night. Your spirits have been buzzing in my ear. They've been tingling up the back of my spine.
Oh, that's good. I know, I've been like, I've got that, it's weird because I sort of have that energy that, like when you do a reading, you get that really funny energy. I've sort of got that kind of energy. It's weird.
I was feeling that during the show. I stumbled a few times on my words, and that was mostly because the energy is just like almost a tickle going up my spine. So would you like to say our final goodbyes to our beautiful audience and listeners?
Thank you everyone for listening. You are listening to the Divination Table, and be sure to check it out next week. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a beautiful evening, and make sure you check out divinationandfortunetelling.com. Have a beautiful night, and we will see you next week on Thursday at 7 p.m.